Imagine the biting chill of a medieval winter, not the romanticized image of warm hearths and feasting halls, but the stark reality of survival in the raw. This isn't a tale of knights in shining armor or castles with their roaring fires. This is the story of the common folk, the peasants whose lives were a daily battle against the relentless cold hunger and the oppressive silence of a winter that could last for months. Snowflakes didn't just dance in the air. They invaded, seeping through the thatched roofs of smoke-filled huts, turning the bread hard as stone and bringing wolves dangerously close, their eyes gleaming with desperation. Each morning, these resilient souls would rise not with the promise of glory, but with the grim determination to endure another day. If the slow, earthy pace of history offers you solace, perhaps this narrative will be your refuge. Consider sharing your location and the time with us in the comments, finding solace in the knowledge that others too are out there seeking comfort in this shared experience. So, lower the lights, let a fan whisper in the background, and wrap yourself in the warmth of your own world. We begin our journey in a season that didn't merely challenge humanity, it sought to extinguish it. You don't need a calendar to herald winter's arrival. Your very bones feel it first stiffening like the day-old bread. The sky, once a vibrant blue, fades into a reluctant gray. Animals with their innate wisdom watch you with a knowing gaze, sensing the change before you do. Autumn doesn't simply fade away. It withdraws, gradually leaves falling, not just from the trees, but from the very essence of warmth itself. The wind shifts no longer a gentle breeze, but an intrusive guest, probing the cracks of your cottage, chasing out the last vestiges of heat. Chickens huddle silently, and the dog, once barking at the wind, now listens intently, as if to hear the secrets it carries. That's when you know winter is at the doorstep. The sun, when it deigns to appear, feels thin, its warmth a mere memory. As winter stealthily descends upon us, its arrival is not heralded by grand gestures or dramatic weather. No, it creeps in like a silent, unforgiving debt, with consequences that linger in the air, heavy and cold. Have you ever noticed how in these first icy breaths of the season, people seem to walk just a bit faster? It's not the rush of errands or appointments. Rather, it's the sharp sting of stillness that now bites deeper than before. The initial response to this cold intruder is often one of denial. We cling to the remnants of autumn, convincing ourselves that this chill is merely fleeting, a brief shiver in the fabric of our daily lives. We layer up, throwing an old cloak over our October tunic, promising ourselves we'll mend the frayed edges soon. But the truth is we rarely do. The needle is bent. The threads have vanished, and our fingers, too numb to grasp them, refuse to cooperate. Preparation, we say, is key, but let's be candid. Are we ever truly prepared? Winter always catches us mid-autumn with a corner of the roof still begging for repairs or wood left unchopped. There's always something in the garden that didn't get dried or salted in time, left to the mercy of the frost. Yet we make do. We stuff straw into the crevices of our walls, drape cloth over doorways to keep out the draft. We rearrange our sleeping quarters, ensuring everyone huddles closer to the hearth. Even Uncle Gain, with his scent of sheep and his sleep-talking of debts long forgotten, finds a spot near the warmth. Fires are not lit all day. That's a luxury we can't afford. Wood is reserved for evenings for cooking, and that brief, precious hour where cheerfulness is feigned. The rest of the day we depend on the heat from our own bodies, the layers we wear, and the shared warmth of siblings squeezed under a single itchy blanket. The animals feel the change too. They linger longer by the shelter, the chickens huddle together, and the pigs fall into an eerie silence. The cows, sensing the shift, grow more somber. Winter has arrived, not with a flourish, but with a whisper that echoes through every bone and breath, a reminder of the cold, unyielding reality we must now embrace. Amidst the biting chill, the inhabitants of the town grow increasingly testy, their spirits unaltered, as if trapped in a perpetual cycle of discontent. The earth itself hardens into iron, unforgiving, and cold. Last week's muddy paths have transformed into icy traps with half-frozen grooves that twist ankles and claim boots with a chilling grip. Each morning, the water in the bucket wears a thin veil of ice, which you must shatter with a ladle, your hands numbing with each strike, eliciting a soft curse under your breath. And the sky. It hangs above, heavy and gray, like a cloak of despair. It seems to wait, to watch, to whisper of the inevitable. You strain your eyes, trying to decipher its silent omens, hoping the clouds might reveal their secrets. But they are mute, promising only more of the same weeks, without the sun's warm embrace. In town, the pace quickens. Words are clipped, conversations curtailed, and humor evaporates like morning mist. Even the church sermons take on a somber tone, with the priest preaching that this cold is a divine test of humility. Yet one can't help but ponder if perhaps the Almighty might consider a lesson with a touch more warmth. Then one morning, it arrives. Not a storm, but a gentle herald of winter's onset, a light, whimsical dusting of snow. It scatters across the fields like petals from a celestial flower, transforming the landscape. The thatch on the roofs turns ghostly white. Trees stand rigid in their winter armor, and each breath you take materializes into a cloud of frost, your steps echoing like the rustle of ancient parchment underfoot. With this first snow comes a stark realization: winter has sealed the world away. The earth has shut down its operations for the season. No seeds will be sown, no crops will sprout. The pantry holds your fate. What you've gathered is all you have. Should you find your stores lacking, you'll soon discover just how sparse a stew can become. Life shifts from counting days to counting provisions. How many bundles of firewood remain? How many sacks of grain? How many turnips? How many eggs? As the hens too retreat into the cold's embrace, their laying days paused. The chill in the air bites deeper, coaxing everyone to cluster around the hearth, seeking solace in the flickering flames. You, however, keep your hands and mind engaged, even if the tasks seem futile. Mending tattered garments, scrubbing at stubborn pots, sifting through the ashes in a silent prayer for a hidden ember of warmth. When time stretches languidly, which it often does, you take to spinning wool. It's not merely about creating fabric. It's a dance of fingers, a symphony of thoughts, keeping the silence at bay, for in too much quiet, the mind begins to wander and weave its own tales. The creatures of the farm are not just companions, they are fellow dwellers in this cold embrace. The warmer ones find their way inside, not en masse, of course. Boundaries must be maintained, but enough to transform the home into a melting pot of scents, sounds, and communal warmth. Waking to find a goat's breath on your neck becomes an odd sort of morning ritual, one you might never fully embrace but eventually cease to resist. As evening descends, it does so with a vengeance, the sun slipping away far too soon, and the night rolling in with a palpable fury. Candles are a luxury, tallow lamps, a smoky compromise. You huddle by the fire if it's lit, listening to the crackle of wood, the howl of the wind, and occasionally the eerie echo of ghost stories that seem brilliant, until the moment you must dash through the icy yard to the outhouse. You sprint, your heart-racing eyes fixed ahead, refusing to glance into the looming shadows. Yet winter is not solely a season of sorrow. It has its own rhythm, a harsh yet predictable cadence. You grow accustomed to the chores, the limitations finding a peculiar comfort in the shared misery. There's a certain victory in small moments' feet that stay warm for a fleeting 5 minutes a stew that hints at something other than despair, a rare day without the wind howling through the gaps in the walls. Winter, in its relentless way, teaches us to cherish these minor triumphs, to find joy in the simplicity of survival. As you lean against the cold, unyielding wall, you can't help but celebrate quietly, a chuckle barely escaping your lips, because the moment you let out a laugh, too boisterous, someone will remind you that our journey has merely begun. Winters were never kind to us peasants, historically speaking. The onset of the Little Ice Age in the 14th century brought with it winters that were not just harsh, but relentless, stretching across Europe like an unwelcome guest. Imagine rivers turning to solid ice, the Rhine itself becoming a frozen pathway, where markets thrived and people shopped as if the ice would never melt. Yet in the dire years from 1315 to 1317, relentless rains decimated crops, leading not just to cold, but to famine affecting up to 30 million souls. When food dwindles, desperation breeds innovation, or so the whispers would have you believe. Cannibalism, infanticide tales, not for the dinner table, assuming one even had a dinner to speak of. But winter, oh winter, it's not merely about surviving the freeze, it's about surviving each other. Picture this, a family of 6, along with 3 goats, 2 chickens, and a bucket of salted fish, squeezed into a mere 20 square feet of living space. It's a social experiment with no escape route. Every cough, every grumble, let's just say every sound of bodily function becomes part of the cacophony of close quarters, privacy. A distant memory, modesty, it leaves with the last rays of sunlight. You strive to keep the peace, not from patience, but from the practical necessity of not stirring the cold air. And so you settle into this life. Your world shrinks to the warmth of the fire, to the weight of each blanket, the creak of each board, the rhythm of the weather outside. The days grow shorter, nights stretch into an endless darkness, and time itself begins to lose its form, becoming a kind of frozen soup. You're not truly living, you're enduring. And after a while, you cease to ask how long this winter will last. Instead, you simply rise each day, determined to survive it. If fortune smiles, the firewood will last. and you'll make it through to see the thaw. In the heart of a medieval winter, the chill doesn't merely visit. It takes up residence within your very bones, lingering with an unwelcome tenacity. And just as you think you've beaten it back the next day, dawns with the same icy breath. Winter doesn't merely attempt to snuff out your life with its frigid embrace. It seeks to bury you beneath an avalanche of tasks, with wood gathering standing tall at the summit of this frozen mountain of chores. Oh, how you need wood! Not just for the cozy crackle of ambiance, but as a lifeline, as essential as the air you breathe. Fire is the heartbeat of your existence. It cooks your meals, heats your weary limbs, dries your perpetually damp socks, keeps the vermin at bay, and makes your home just bearable enough. Without fire, you're not merely a peasant. You're a frozen figure, still obligated to pay your dues. But fire doesn't conjure itself into existence. It demands wood, copious amounts of it, each log a testament to your labor. Cutting, hauling, chopping, stacking. This is your second full-time job, one that pays not in coin, but in aches, pains, and the occasional frost-bitten toe. There are no modern marvels to assist you, no chainsaws or gas-powered tools. Just an axe so old and worn, it might as well be an heirloom. Its handle is cracked, the blade dulled by time, yet it's infinitely preferable to using your bare hands, which, let's be honest, you'll end up doing anyway when the axe inevitably jams into the third log. You're supposed to start in autumn. Everyone says so. Begin early, they advise. Yet life conspires against you. The harvest lingers. Your neighbor has borrowed your axe. And there was that unfortunate incident with the goose. Now here you stand in December, wielding steel against wood, as if it had insulted your lineage, hoping against hope that the tree falls in the direction you intend. Trees, however, have their own agenda. They are heavy, unpredictable, and cloaked in snow. You fell one only to realize the true labor lies ahead, chopping, carrying, stacking. This cycle repeats 50 times over a relentless dance with nature's cold indifference. Alas, the trials of gathering firewood. If fortune smiles upon you, your only woe might be a sore back. But if luck turns its back, a tree might come crashing down upon you, transforming you into a fable of caution for all to heed. Once the wood is felled, it must dry, a process that stretches over many long, cold months. In your haste, you burn it wet, coaxing forth smoke and hisses a feeble flame that mocks your efforts. Congratulations. Your home has now morphed into a lukewarm, smoky purgatory. One can only hope you weren't planning on enjoying the crisp, clean air of winter. Of course, the affluent have their luxuries. They hire hands to do the dirty work, lounging with wine glasses in hand before a roaring fire. But for you, the servant, your fire, is but a sad heap of damp twigs, struggling valiantly to provide warmth. Legally, your options are curtailed. Forests are the dominion of the lords, and trespassing to gather even the smallest twig can lead to fines, floggings, or worse, being publicly shamed for merely collecting kindling. Yes, it's as harsh as it sounds. Thus many turn to alternatives out of necessity. Peat-dried dung or bundles of brushwood. These are the fuels of the downtrodden. They burn, in a manner of speaking, much like a thin broth, might be called a meal. Peat gives off warmth, but with it comes an odor reminiscent of wet ashes and deep regret. Dung, on the other hand, burns surprisingly well, though no one relishes the thought. Yet you make do with what you can gather, your hands numbed by the cold, as you collect remnants of last summer's fields, breathing in memories not so fondly remembered. The good news is, it's free. The bad? Your modest dwelling now reeks as if a campfire were smoldering within the confines of a barn. Stacking firewood, too, is an art form. Stack too tightly, and mold takes hold. Too loosely, and it tumbles perhaps, breaking a toe in the process. So you build your stack with care, leaning it against your cottage wall, wrapping it with any canvas you can procure, stolen or otherwise. The relentless dance with winter, where each snowflake seems to whisper tales of scarcity. When the frost kisses the ground, one's thoughts inevitably turn to the hearth, where the fire, that fickle friend, demands its due. You find yourself fretting over the woodpile, a fortress built against the cold, yet you know in your heart it will never suffice. By February, you're scavenging for anything that might burn, from fence posts to ancient forgotten furniture. There's no room for sentimentality. If it ignites, it's fuel. Dreams are haunted by visions of firewood counting logs, like they're the currency of survival. Arguments flare up over who burned the best piece too soon, and embers are rationed, as if they were the last drops of water in a desert. When you stumble upon a dry branch beneath the snow, you clutch it like a prize of war, a small victory in this endless battle against the cold. Sleeping becomes a gamble, a game of chance, where the fire's breath is the difference between comfort and catastrophe. You huddle under layers, not for love of company, but because warmth trumps solitude. In some dwellings, livestock joins the human occupants, not for affection, but sheer necessity. Chickens offer warmth, and the occasional egg pigs serve as living radiators, and cows, those gentle giants, become mobile heaters. It's not quaint, it's crowded, cacophonous, and redolent of a barnyard feast gone awry, yet it's marginally better than succumbing to the icy grip of winter. Historically, the struggle was communal. Peasants, bound by the common enemy of cold, would unite in the labor of chopping and hauling wood. It was less about camaraderie and more about shared suffering, blisters, frostbite, and the universal misery making the hardship a tad more bearable. In certain regions, clever tricks were employed to conserve wood. Clay ovens were communal, and village fires burned all day, providing warmth and a place to bake bread, all while everyone tried to ignore the suspiciously snug glow emanating from Agnes's house. In this frigid dance, every person, every animal plays their part, not out of choice, but because winter demands it. In the heart of the forest, where the trees whisper secrets to the wind, small figures with nimble fingers were dispatched, their baskets empty, but their spirits full of determination. Not because it was simpler, but because that's how the division of labor unfurled. If you were slight of build and dexterous, you found yourself among the trees, instructed to return with something, anything, to fuel the hearth. Twigs, pine cones, anything that could catch a spark would do. Your contribution, however small, was vital. Then came the chopping, an endeavor steeped in the ancient misery of medieval life. Your gloves, if you possessed any, would be sodden in moments, your fingers stiffening with the cold. The axe, slick with your sweat, would slip, sending wood flying in unpredictable directions. A misstep, a misplaced swing, and the wood would split awry. A shard would strike your shin, eliciting a cry not for relief, but for the sheer release of pent-up frustration. Midwinter, the ground becomes an unforgiving slab, impossible to penetrate. Your hands, now more splinter than flesh, still puzzle over the vanished half of your woodpile. Spoiler alert, your neighbor ever, the borrower, has struck again. Yet, you persist, because fire is life. It's warmth, it's sustenance. It's the thin line between surviving the frostbite of winter or succumbing to the relentless cold. When you finally collapse by the fire at night, weary and slightly smoked, there's a whisper of peace, not comfort, just the fleeting absence of despair. In those moments, in the heart of the Middle Ages, this is as close to solace as you might come. Do you recall the winters that seared themselves into memory? The winter of '43, when the roof caved in under the weight of snow, or the endless freeze where the river turned to stone, and everyone ventured onto the ice in their wooden shoes. Some did not return. A few perished in the cold, others simply vanished, never to be seen again. After a while, you learn to stop asking questions. The firewood diminishes, the wind howls through the cracks, and you start viewing your furniture with a new, more practical eye. That old stool, never your favorite, now looks quite flammable. Sentiment fades, replaced by the primal urge to survive. If only. The fire crackles with a voracious hunger, devouring the wood with an insatiable appetite. The value of this warmth is immeasurable, a testament to survival in the harsh clasp of winter. Yet, as the season turns, the snow, weary from its long reign, slinks away like a thief caught in the act. In its wake, the earth turns to mud, swallowing your boots in its murky depths. But you have emerged victorious. You've weathered another medieval winter, your spirit unbroken by the icy grip, your hearth never lacking for fuel, and your patience intact, despite your cousin's audacious theft of your best log. This, my friend, is the true victory. No pomp, no fanfare, just the silent satisfaction of fingers once frostbitten, now thawing, the lingering scent of smoke in your clothes, and the profound relief that you are not this year a human popsicle. And yet, as dawn breaks, the cycle begins anew. The cold, though lessening, clings to the air, and the chores, relentless, demand your attention. The fire, that capricious deity ever greedy, always craves more wood, sweat your very essence. You offer these willingly, for comfort is a luxury. Survival is the true quest. Each splinter, each log is a testament to your resolve. Tomorrow, the routine persists. Chop, stack, burn, shiver, repeat. Winter is not conquered, it is endured. And with a bit of fortune, next year's axe will hold up longer than your spirit. Winter cares not for your weariness. The logs will not split themselves. The fire will not sustain itself, and warmth, that elusive gem, must be earned daily. Your stomach, more than any calendar, heralds the season's depth with its loud, persistent calls. This isn't the modern hunger that nudges you towards the fridge. It's a primal, gnawing void that has you eyeing tree bark, wondering if it could possibly be stewed. Food in this medieval winter, much like firewood, is always in short supply, always hard-won, and inevitably a source of contention. You don't plan feasts, you ration, you stretch. 3 shriveled turnips become a banquet in this time of scarcity. Ah, the precious grains you've hoarded, barley, rye, oats. And if fortune smiles upon you, or you've pilfered from the wealthy wheat, these treasures are stowed in sacks, barrels, or any vessel that might thwart those relentless furry tax collectors with gnashing teeth. Yes, the rats. They always find a way, don't they? Now let's talk about your daily sustenance, the medieval enigma known as pottage. It's less of a recipe and more of a culinary adventure, a lifelong experiment in survival. You toss in whatever edible scraps you find, root vegetables, dried beans, wilted greens, perhaps a strip of dried pork, if you're blessed with royal connections or a neighbor's benevolence. This concoction simmers for days, sometimes weeks, with new ingredients joining the mix, and the old ones never truly departing. It tastes like the very earth boiled down with a whisper of onion and a dash of regret. Yet you consume it day in and day out, twice, if fate allows, not for love of the dish, but for the simple fact that it's there. And in the depths of winter, that's enough. Meat. A luxury, a rarity. You lack the luxury of a freezer or even a cold cellar, just a marginally less dire corner of your humble abode. Should you have the misfortune or fortune to slaughter a pig, a goat, or perhaps your neighbor's least cherished chicken in the fall, you salt it, smoke it, dry it, and then guard it like a dragon over its hoard, especially from the little ones. Those children, they'll eat anything raw bacon included down to the string that binds it.
And then there's fishing. If the river isn't locked in ice, if the ice isn't too thick, and if you haven't already sacrificed your fishing rod to the flames for warmth. Ice fishing. A necessary ordeal, not a pastime. You chip away at the ice, your toes slowly surrendering to numbness, sitting, waiting, pondering over the series of increasingly absurd choices that led you to this moment. But if you're by the sea, in the realm of survival, where the earth's offerings are scarce, you might find yourself drying herring or smoking eel. These foods, steeped in tradition and necessity, offer both nutrition and endurance, their flavors as robust as their longevity. But what if water, that cradle of life, is not within reach? You must then turn to the fortunes of your neighbors, pilfering what they have not vigilantly protected. Bread. Oh, bread. It stands as the cornerstone of sustenance, yet it's a risky affair. Crafted from whatever flour lies at hand, rye, barley, or even lentils, it's often bulked up with fillers. Yes, sawdust ground acorns, or in dire times bark. This bread isn't the tender, fluffy delight of modern times. It's a solid mass, a culinary blunt instrument, perhaps as much a weapon as it is nourishment. And beware, for this bread can turn on you. In the damp confines of storage, rye might sprout a dangerous fungus known as ergot, which can send you spiraling into visions, convulsions, or even to the afterlife. You are unaware of this peril, only experiencing the bread's strange effects. Visions of colors, cries to the clouds, and perhaps in the eyes of onlookers, you become either a saint or a sorceress. Dairy.
If you're fortunate enough to have animals that haven't succumbed to the harsh winter, is another story. Milk that fleeting treasure quickly turns, urging you to transform it into butter or cheese. The cheese. It's hard, salty, almost menacing in its solidity. Butter, a true luxury, is treated with the reverence of gold hidden under your bed, wrapped in cloth. For in winter, it might as well be. Eggs, a rarity. Chickens busy surviving the cold lay sparingly. Perhaps one egg a week, maybe two if you sweet-talk the hens and give the rooster a stern look. That precious egg finds its way into your pottage, or you simply stare at it, willing yourself full through imagination alone. Fresh fruits and vegetables. A charming, distant memory. No apples, no vibrant greens. Maybe a shriveled plum from last August, if it hasn't rotted or played host to a worm. Your vitamin C comes from the sour crunch of fermented cabbage or turnip, a concoction lovingly dubbed crunchy disappointment in vinegar. It's your shield against scurvy, yet it's a bittersweet reminder of the earth's harsh embrace. In the realm of preservation, every technique is cherished, each method a testament to survival. Use salt, smoke, pickle, and dry. Anything that once moved lived or simply brushed against life. Berries, when stumbled upon, are transformed into jams, if they survive the ravenous, sugar-starved frenzy of last summer. Herbs dangle from the ceiling, descending into soups like leafy confetti, a celebration of sustenance. Nothing is squandered. Bones are boiled not once but twice. The fat is hoarded like treasure. Even the ashes from the hearth find new life, either in soap or in scouring pots. To cast away food is to question one's very sanity, or perhaps to consider them a potential spouse. For surely they must be affluent enough to indulge in such extravagance.
And then there is hunger. Not the mild pang of skipped lunch, but the relentless, gnawing kind that makes you feel your stomach scraping against your spine. This hunger is a constant companion sitting beside you as you cook, offering commentary on your meager portions and judging the neighbor's squirrel stew with a begrudging, "Well, that actually looks quite all right." It's a rhythm, this hunger. You wake with it, you retire with it, learning to coexist with the persistent gnawing, like a mouse nibbling within. You become accustomed to it. This hunger, until a waft of stew from a neighbor's hut stirs you, making you ponder the unthinkable, trading a sibling for a bowl. Even those slightly better off, the so-called wealthier peasants, don't fare much better. They merely consume more of the same monotonous, mealy fare. Yet, occasionally, there's a treat, a slice of honeycomb, fresh apple slices, or a sliver of salted beef no larger than a coin. These are not mere tastes. They are celebrations, poignant reminders that life at times can be less harsh. And then, inevitably, come the lean years, the bad harvests, the crop failures. You remember the winter of, the year 1316, or rather the tales that linger. Torrential rain swallowed the earth, drowning dreams and hopes alike. Decay crept in, insidious and cruel, as the fields surrendered to the relentless rot. Grain, the very lifeblood of the villages, crumbled beneath the weight of misfortune. Starvation gnawed at livestock, turning them into mere skeletons draped in hide. Hunger became a silent predator, stalking through the hamlets where entire families lay down to sleep on empty stomachs. They whisper of it now, the great famine, not for the flair of drama,
but because it was a calamity so profound, so utterly devastating, that it deserved a name of its own. In desperation, some foraged for roots, others scraped moss from stones. Some in their darkest hours turned to recipes no medieval chef would dare pen down. Monks, those guardians of time, recorded these grim tales. They penned stories of families disappearing into the void of hunger, of parents making the heart-wrenching choice of who among their children would eat the last morsel of bodies discovered in the snow, clutching turnips as if they were the last jewels on earth. This isn't folklore. It's the stark, unadorned truth, the forgotten footnotes of history. Imagine when food does appear, the fire has long since died. You sit in the dim glow of a candle spooning cold stew wrapped in a fur that still reeks of the beast it once was. Gratitude fills you not because it's a feast, but because it's sustenance. You chew, savoring each bite, for it's not your own flesh you're gnawing on. Meals are fleeting, but the hunger lingers, a constant gnawing companion. You scrape your bowl not for politeness, but for survival. Every crumb counts. You lick your fingers, your pot contemplating if it too could be sustenance, only to remember it's your sole possession. Your body changes, moving slower, shedding weight not by choice but by necessity. You don't call it dieting, you call it survival. Yet, you persist. Hunger isn't a crisis, it's a fact. You don't aspire to feel full, you merely hope not to feel worse. That's winter, a negotiation between you, your pantry, and the calendar counting down the meals until April. There are no holiday feasts unless fortune or connections provide. Perhaps you hoard a sausage for Christmas, or a neighbor, in an act of sheer bravery, shares a pie made from mystery meat. You don't ask. You eat, you smile, and you try not to cry. For in this moment, this is abundance. When the last morsel of food vanishes in a mere 3 bites, even the celebratory dishes of the medieval winter are steeped in practicality. Spiced ale, if one could afford the luxury of spices, or nut cakes, should anyone possess nuts, become the staples. Pies brimming with dried fruits soaked in syrup and desperation are less about indulgence and more a ritual, a poignant reminder that joy, though crusted in soot and shared with shivering kin, does indeed exist. So what did you feast upon in those harsh winters? Anything that wouldn't feast on you first. Anything you could preserve, conceal, or boil until it ceased its protests. You didn't dine, you survived. Hunger, wearing its woolen coat, wraps around you, whispers in your ear, and lingers like an unwelcome guest. And when spring finally graces the earth, the sight of the first green shoot doesn't inspire admiration, it prompts a bite. Your home in the medieval era was no sanctuary, no refuge. By modern standards, it barely qualifies as a building. Imagine a wooden suggestion of shelter loosely tacked to a dirt floor, held together by good intentions, dried mud, and the unspoken rule that no one dare sneezes too forcefully. Let's delve into the walls first. Wattle and daub. If fortune smiled upon you, that's woven wooden strips slathered in a concoction of mud straw and whatever else lay about cow dung hair gossip. You pack it all together, hoping it hardens before the storm strikes. Spoiler, it seldom does. On a good day, the wind merely whistles through the cracks. On a bad day, it howls as if it owns the place and demands rent. Insulation, none. Sealant, forgotten. It's just the outside and slightly less outside. Your roof, naturally thatched, might sound charming until you grasp it's merely dried plant matter arranged in a somewhat triangular form. It leaks incessantly like a relentless rain of disappointments. Ah, the humble abode. As winter's icy breath descends, snow heaps up against the walls, creating a cozy haven for creatures small and determined. Birds nestle into the snowy embrace, while mice, ever the opportunists, scurry in and, audacious as they are, begin to charge rent. Picture this: the storm rages, and you're caught in a dance of luck. If fortune smiles, your roof merely sags. If not, you awaken to find your ceiling has decided to join you in bed, and perhaps a chicken perched on your bewildered face. The floor? Oh, the floor, it's simply dirt. When rain kisses the earth, you wait, your feet sinking into the mire. When frost grips the ground, each step is a perilous slide. And in the dry spells, the dust invades, infiltrating your life, your breath, your very essence. Straw thrown down in a desperate bid for comfort soon succumbs to the relentless trampling, morphing into a musty, foot-scented despair that clings to every corner. Windows, a luxury of the affluent. Here we have apertures mere holes in the wall. If extravagance strikes you, might drape oiled parchment across a feeble attempt at warmth, letting in light, but also every whisper of the wind until Easter's thaw. Curtains are a distant dream, fabric too precious for mere privacy. Doors hang by hinges that groan like injured beasts barely latching. You might prop one closed with a log, or if logs are scarce, having been sacrificed to the cold, simply pray the wind keeps its playful gusts at bay. Central to this tableau is the fire pit, not for its charm, but necessity. No chimney to guide the smoke. Instead, it meanders through the room, cloaking everything in a smoky embrace. You cease to smell it after a while. Indeed, you become the smoke, your very existence intertwined with its gray tendrils. Now onto what might be called furniture, though it's sparse. A bench, perhaps a stool, and, if you're living lavishly, a table. Beds. They are communal, shared, not just with family, but occasionally with livestock. The mattress, a simple sack of straw, offering little comfort, but much necessity. Here in this rustic embrace, life unfolds with a raw, unyielding simplicity. Ah, the simple sack, your makeshift bed. It sounds fine at first until you recall the sad truth. Straw doesn't remain delightfully fluffy. It compresses, molds itself into your every curve, and oh, how it invites the bugs. Your pillow, too, is but another sack. If fortune smiles upon you, it's stuffed with feathers. If not well, it's just more straw, perhaps slightly less crunchy than the floor. For warmth, there are blankets wool, if you've managed to procure some, or furs if some creature met its fate nearby. Most nights you find yourself sleeping in your clothes, buried beneath all you own, praying that your body heat combined with sheer faith will see you through the night. And should your fire falter and die, you awaken frozen within a cloud of your own breath, questioning every choice that led you to this shivering moment, heating this humble abode.
A challenge indeed. The fire must be kept alive. Yet, heat rises, smoke rises, and there you are on the floor, your toes turning to icicles, while your rafters bask in their own private sauna. Stones around the hearth do their part, absorbing and slowly releasing heat, but only if you've the fuel to warm them first. You patch up cracks with moss cloth or mud, but to no avail. The wind, ever persistent, finds its way. It always does. Some days the air inside feels colder than the air outside. And though you might try to do something about it, your fingers are too numb to even untie your cloak. Lighting. Ah, what a joy! Tallow candles dripping, sputtering, and reeking of beef fat, or rush lights, reeds dipped in animal grease, burning as if someone tried to weaponize a salad. The smoke from these blends with the hearths creating a low-hanging haze of medieval asthma triggers. And the noise? Thin walls mean you hear everything. The howling wind, the rustling livestock. Your neighbors sneeze, your own stomach growling back at you as if it's lodging a formal complaint. Privacy. The myth of solitude. A quaint cottage nestled amidst the whispering trees, a sanctuary where the line between indoors and outdoors blurs into non-existence. You step into this world and immediately the solitude is an illusion. Here you are not alone. You share your home with the creatures of the forest. Chickens, in their infinite wisdom, choose the corners of your living space for their nests. A goat, with a preference for your undertable real estate, snores softly, adding a rhythmic soundtrack to your nights. Should you be so fortunate to own a cow, she resides in a lean-to against your cottage wall, seeking refuge from the biting cold. When winter's chill becomes too fierce, she ventures inside, transforming your living room into a barnyard haven. This proximity does more than just share warmth. It fills your home with life, albeit a noisy, messy, and somewhat odorous one. The scent of straw bedding, tinged with the sourness of old milk, permeates the air. Imagine waking to the soft plop of an egg laid beside your head by a considerate chicken, only to whisper a heartfelt "thank you" before drifting back to sleep, praying it won't leave any other surprises. Your roof, too, is a haven, not just for you, but for an array of avian and rodent guests. The thick thatch provides perfect nesting material, ensuring that in spring the pitter-patter of tiny feet becomes a constant symphony above your head. Maintenance is a daily ritual. Doors crack, rafters bend, and doors sag under the weight of time and weather. The wind, ever the playful antagonist, tears at your roof. With no nails to spare, you resort to creative fixes, wedging, hammering with a rock, and binding with a prayer, and a very dull knife. When rain decides to challenge your craftsmanship, you don't just grab a bucket. You deploy an arsenal of them, strategically placing each to catch the drips, as if playing a game of splash chess, where losing is not an option. Each leak, each creak, each unexpected visitor, they're all part of the charm, the heartbeat of your rustic existence. First, you christen them with names, those creaks and leaks, you even curse them. But then, amidst the cold, there are those precious moments when the fire blazes warmly, someone shares a fur or a draft, inexplicably ceases. You convince yourself it's your own craft at work. You huddle close with your family, pretending the smell is somehow comforting. It isn't, yet it's familiar.
Still, you endure, for this isn't merely timber and bad odors. This is home. Here you were born here. Your children came into the world, and here someone likely breathed their last, just last week. You patch, you sweep, you whisper to it in winter, as if coaxing a sick relative to hold on just a little longer.
You don't dream of castles. No, you compare it to the alternative, not freezing to death. By that measure, it's doing splendidly. Some wealthier peasants whitewash their walls, not for grandeur, but for lice. Lime kills the bugs, and a fresh coat each year keeps the walls bright, and the infestations mostly cosmetic. You entertain the idea of doing the same collecting lime with hope. But then the firewood runs out again. You hang herbs to sweeten the air. They dry, crumble, and fall into your soup. You eat it anyway, convincing yourself it's seasoning. It isn't. Every now and then you indulge in the fantasy of a second room, a wooden floor, a roof that doesn't make you wince with every gust of wind. You don't expect these dreams to come true. They just sit with you quietly as you stitch another patch into the wall and listen to the rain seep through the ceiling. Because in the end, your house isn't warm or dry or peaceful. But oh, it's still standing. And in a medieval winter, that's as close to a miracle as one might dare to hope for. The dim glow outside heralds the dawn. Or perhaps it's merely the moon's reluctant farewell. Either way, it's time to rise. Not from rest, for there has been none, nor from excitement, which is equally absent. No, you rise because life itself demands it. Survival hinges on completing tasks before the icy grip of frostbite, the gnawing hunger of famine, or even your neighbor's goat can beat you to the water source. Here there are no weekends, no moments for oneself, just enough time to scrape the icy frost from your eyebrows before plunging into another day of toil. Each day echoes the one before, a relentless cycle of gathering, mending, feeding, carrying, boiling, patching, and repeating. Winter in medieval Europe is not a season, but a perpetual to-do list, scrawled in mud smoke and sheer exhaustion. The first task, revive the fire. You pray the embers have endured the night. If not, it's back to the primal dance of flint and steel, hunching over kindling with fingers stiff from the cold, your breath hanging in the air like a ghostly apparition. Wood, oh so precious, must be used judiciously. A robust fire means warmth, sustenance, light, and life itself. A feeble one, however, watches as these essentials slip away, while you feign indifference to the smoke-induced tears. Once the fire reluctantly sputters to life, coughing like an asthmatic squirrel, it's time to fetch water. The bucket feels like a boulder, the stream half frozen, and the path slick enough to host the most perilous Olympic event imaginable, peasant figure skating. You stumble, you spill, you curse the ice, the bucket, and the cruel jest that is winter. Yet you return, because water does not fetch itself. Back at the humble abode, you boil the water. Not out of health consciousness, but necessity. Untreated water could be your undoing. Every sip is a roll of the dice. This boiling not only purifies your drink, but also warms your hands, steams the hut, and momentarily delays the creeping chill. Imagine you've been wrestling with a medieval misadventure for another grueling 10 minutes. Now,
The animals clamor for your attention, their needs pressing before your own. The chickens peck at your boots, irritated. The pigs squeal with a cacophony that pierces the morning chill. And the cow, with her soulful eyes, seems to judge you for every moment you've delayed. You gather what you can, old hay kitchen scraps, and anything that hasn't turned into an icy block. As you check the coop for eggs, there's nothing but the rooster's endless commentary crowing about your shortcomings. If snow has graced the night, you must clear a path to the door, not for the sake of cleanliness, but to avoid a comedic yet painful tumble into a snowdrift while juggling a bucket of pig slop, a memory that would haunt you for seasons. With hands wrapped in rags, you shovel with a flat plank, muttering under your breath, words that would surely lead to excommunication if overheard. Once the animals are fed and your fingers are tingling back to life, it's time for what could be called breakfast. Yesterday's cottage pie reheated with a side of today's regrets. Maybe some bread if you're lucky. And if someone had the foresight to scrape the pot clean the night before. No one dares complain. After all, complaining requires energy you can ill afford to waste. Then comes the real work. If you're a man, you're off to the fields, the forest, or the forge. If you're a woman, the world of chores unfolds before you like a never-ending tapestry. Spinning wool, mending clothes, preparing meals, scrubbing soot, hauling water, stirring pots, and somehow keeping 6 children from turning into icicles while your hands morph into the shapes of claws. The roof needs mending. That's your task. Firewood must be fetched. Also your responsibility. And the goat. Ensuring it doesn't freeze, escape, or heaven forbid, explode. That's on you too. There are no lists, just an unending river of crises to navigate before the sun sets. Laundry day arrives once a week, a ritual akin to entering purgatory. You drag the clothes to the river, break through the ice with a heavy heart, and scrub with a concoction of ash and lye until your knuckles bleed and your spirit nearly departs. And then you rinse. Freeze, repeat the kitchen dance is a familiar tune, a game of culinary improvisation where expectations are but whispers on the wind. The same pot kissed by yesterday's flames now simmers anew. You skim the broth for signs of life, perhaps adding a dash of herbs, or even a pebble for that unexpected crunch. You ladle out what you dare to call soup, serving it with a warmth that belies the chill in your bones. Afternoons are dedicated to mending a symphony of repair. Tools fences the fragile threads of relationships frayed by the mundane quarrels over who devoured the last turnip. You hone blades with stone worn smooth by time, older than your grandfather, who met his end from the same ladder you now ascend to patch the ceiling. Children, in theory, assist. In practice, they entangle themselves in the chaos of chores. They hold yarn ward off crows and carry small sticks for the fire, their work born of necessity. Playtime. A myth, a legend whispered only when the work is done, which it never is.
Inside the spinning wheel spins its endless tale. Wool does not weave itself. Linen does not spin into thread without human touch. Each garment, each thread has passed through hands that now ache with the burden of labor. Gloves, a luxury. Calluses, the common badge of survival. And if a spindle dares to roll into the fire, you stand staring, contemplating the warmth of the flames, wondering if perhaps you should follow. By late afternoon, the light wanes, the sun barely making an effort in the winter sky. Shadows stretch like long fingers urging haste. You rush to mend the day's broken parts, walls with mud, door hinges, roofs with nothing but straw, a rock, and an audacious hope. Then, as evening approaches, you stir the stew stoke, the fire scrape the frost from your water bucket. You layer on more clothes, each one a testament to the relentless cold. Dinner arrives, a modest affair. A stew, a piece of bread, a shared mug of weak ale, or perhaps just water. It's not a feast, but in this moment, it's everything. In this harsh, unforgiving winter, your tea is more than just a beverage. It's a lifeline thrice boiled to render it less lethal. You huddle close to the hearth, a delicate dance between the dangerous lick of flames and the creeping cold that threatens frostbite. The meal you take in haste, knowing the fleeting warmth will soon dissipate. There's no time to relax, no gentle unwinding of the day. Instead, your fingers are ever busy, spinning thread, mending tears in worn socks, patching cloaks, and scraping away the soot that gathers. Children, a mass of tangled limbs and gentle snores, sleep close to the fire. Their innocence a stark contrast to the relentless toil of the adults who remain awake. Not for leisure, but necessity. The fire must be fed, and tomorrow's wood must be gathered. If fortune smiles, a song might drift through the air, a quiet melody, spun by someone spinning or shelling peas. It's not a song of joy, but one of solace, a whisper that life persists just barely beyond the endless labor. As night descends prematurely, you retire to the same clothes, the same damp blanket, the same straw mattress. The wind's howl accompanies the goat's nocturnal noises, and you pray the roof withstands the storm, hope for a warmer tomorrow, or at least not a colder one. Sleep claims you not from peace, but from sheer exhaustion, the only lullaby you can afford. This cycle, this relentless grind, it repeats day after day. Every task, every moment is tinged with ache. There's no catching up, only a slower descent into further arrears. Holidays. They are rare and deceptive. A day off might mean standing in the chill of the church, enduring a sermon on the virtue of suffering, only to return to chores left undone in the name of spiritual fulfillment. Winter life is a symphony of monotony where each note played has dire consequences. Chores are not for the feeling of accomplishment. They are survival's demands. A torn cloak, a missed firewood collection could mean someone goes hungry, cold, or worse. The margin for error. It's slimmer than the thread you spin. Every stitch, every split log, every boiled pot is a testament to the delicate balance between life and the relentless cold. A misplaced hat, a shattered tool, each a harbinger of potential calamity. Every task, no matter how trivial, pulses with an unspoken urgency. Yet, you press on undeterred because the burdens are yours alone to bear. Who else will fetch the water, repair the wool, nourish the goat, or simmer that dubious gray stew? This is your existence, your winter. The chores are relentless, ceaseless. Do you ever pause to ponder what it would feel like to truly rest, to simply sit, to breathe freely, unburdened by the endless to-do list?
that sprawls from sunrise to sunset. But rest is a luxury, a distant dream. Survival demands movement, demands action. So you adjust the logs, smooth the wool, soothe the infant, and exchange a weary nod with your partner across the flickering hearth. Another day concluded, another identical one looming on the horizon. The work is unending, but so are you. Even in slumber, your body remembers. The blisters, the burns, the bruises, they don't vanish. They meld into your very essence, as inescapable as the smoke in your garments, the frost etching the window panes, the life you didn't choose but must live. And then one morning you awaken to a relentless runny nose, a throat as raw as if you'd gargled with pine cones and joints that feel oddly inflated from within. Bravo. You're now wrestling with an ailment without a name, without a cure, lacking even the grace of a polite bedside manner. Is it a common cold, the flu, or perhaps something more sinister like medieval tuberculosis? It's yours to battle now. Getting sick in winter, isn't it almost a rite of passage? The dampness of the hut, the biting cold, the fire extinguished in the night, and the constant inhalation of smoke, goat dander, and spores from the mossy walls since October. No, this isn't merely inconvenience. It's a testament to endurance, to the sheer tenacity of living through another winter, another day. In a world where the concept of germs is but a whisper on the wind, your body, oh, your poor body, is in the throes of rebellion. Everywhere, the air is thick with the cacophony of coughs and sneezes, unshielded by the courtesy of a tissue. Personal hygiene, it's the stuff of legends, a tale told to children at bedtime. The children, bless their souls, are unwell. The elderly, their spirits as frail as their bodies, are ailing too. Even the livestock, those stoic beasts, might be succumbing to this invisible foe. And you cling to life with nothing but nettle tea, its scent so potent it could ward off more than just illness. Ah, the remedies, you'll adore them. There's the time-honored tradition of bloodletting. Of course, the cure-all for every woe, from the pounding of a headache to the ache of a broken heart. A dull knife, or perhaps a leech. Your friendly neighborhood healer decides that less blood might just be the ticket out of your feverish misery. Does it work? Not in the slightest. But does it make you dizzy enough to forget your woes momentarily? Indeed, it does. Then there are the herbal concoctions, a witch's brew of dried weeds and wild guesses, yarrow, wormwood nettles, and perhaps some unidentified moss, all mixed with a dash of superstition. You boil this potion in a pot, as old as time itself, strain it through whatever clean fabric you can find, and sip it. Each drop a testament to your survival instinct, despite its taste, akin to betrayal and bitterness. And let's not forget the advice to fast, because clearly a body battling an infection needs less sustenance, right? Bread is a luxury pottage, a gray memory, and fasting for spiritual purification is merely a euphemism for rationing when the pantry echoes with emptiness. Other treatments include inhaling the steam from your soup pot, long sessions of prayer, and in dire situations placing hot coals near the skin to supposedly extract the poison. Does it work? About as well as one might expect from such desperate measures. Medical help in this time is a gamble, a roll of the dice in the hands of fate. Imagine the suspense as you lie in wait, each creak of the door heralding a different fate. Should the village healer be the first to grace your threshold, a concoction of pus and herbs might be your remedy, a blend of earth and mystery to combat your ailment. But should the priest arrive, his presence is marked by the solemnity of prayers and the sanctity of holy water, perhaps accompanied by a gentle nudge, a reminder of your spiritual neglect. And beware, if the barber surgeon steps into your room, for with him comes a grim, albeit cheerful certainty. His bag untouched by since the last great plague, clatters with the tools of his trade. His eyes light up at the sight of your swollen leg, murmuring about the balance of humors before he brandishes a saw and a tankard of something dubious. Oh, how you might protest, but reality bites hard. You'll find yourself biting down on a stick, your screams joining the chorus of the afflicted. Sometimes they'll purge you either up or down, depending on which end of your body rebels most against your sickness. Laxatives crafted from boiled bark or dried beetles or emetics, brewed from wine and despair, turn your sickness from mere discomfort into a violent, aggressive assault on your senses, leaving you to ponder the very essence of survival. Yet, in the dim light of your straw bed, amidst the stench of damp wool and the bitter aftertaste of herbal concoctions, some do find their way back to health. Days are spent sweating, shivering, and hallucinating the fire, barely flickering the air, thick with the scent of your struggle. The hut, a small sealed box of smoke and livestock with zero ventilation, becomes a breeding ground for illness. A cough here, a wheeze there, and soon the entire village is enveloped in a symphony of sickness, each person under moldy blankets, sipping onion water and receiving last rites. What causes this wave of despair? Is it the foul air? A curse, perhaps? Or maybe it's just the strange look old Maud gave someone during the last sermon. The mystery lingers, as does the hope for recovery. Just last week, the entire street was engulfed in a symphony of coughing. Each hack, a grim reminder of the illness spreading like wildfire through our homes. Superstition dances with desperation. We hang herbs over doorways, burn sage until our eyes water, and tuck iron under our beds to fend off the malevolent spirits that seem to haunt every corner. Yet these ancient rituals bring no cure, only a fleeting sense of comfort, a nicer scent than the lingering stench of despair. The cruelest twist. The world doesn't pause for the sick. The wood still demands chopping, its splinters biting into feverish hands. The cow, oblivious to human suffering, still requires milking her bell a constant mocking chime. And your children, their eyes wide with innocence, still look to you for dinner, even if it's nothing more than a bowl of hope flavored with nettles. Rest. That's a luxury, whispered in the dreams of the dead. So wrapped in layers of wool that feel like armor against the cold, you drag yourself through the snow. A spectral figure haunted by the fear that this isn't just another outbreak. Could this be the prelude to something far more sinister? Typhoid pneumonia. These silent killers that creep in without fanfare, taking you in the quiet of the night. That's the dread that grips the heart, not the pain, but the eerie silence that follows. When the fever climbs like ivy up the wall, when your breath becomes a hollow rattle, and you can't even rise from your bed, the signs are unmistakable. Someone places a damp cloth on your forehead, a gesture of care that feels more like a farewell. The priest is called not the healer or the barber, but the man of the cloth signaling the end. Confession pours from your lips, a desperate litany of sins, real and imagined, while the priest's holy water carries the scent of mildew and the weight of inevitable endings. His Latin words, though foreign, echo with a finality that chills your soul. Your family gathers their silence, speaking volumes. The herbs simmer softly, a quiet rebellion against the encroaching darkness. Bread is saved, blankets are tucked, and in this solemn assembly everyone prepares for the possibility that this might be your last night. In that fleeting moment, as your eyes meet across the room, a chilling realization dawns upon you both. The uncertainty of who will endure the harsh embrace of this winter. But as if by a stroke of mercy, the fever eventually subsides. One morning you rise, and the fire, though feeble, still flickers with life. Your breath flows freely. Your fingers twitch with the will to move. The air, heavy with the scent of death, carries a hint of warmth. You've clung to life by a thread, and now the arduous journey towards recovery begins. Recovery, however, is no triumphant parade. Your legs, once strong, now tremble with weakness. Your back, a map of pain, protests with every movement. Days have passed since you've tasted anything but the bitter broth, and your stomach recoils at the thought of solid food. Daring to stand too quickly, you nearly collapse into the hearth. Your first venture outside is akin to traversing a desolate, frozen landscape on limbs of despair. There's no fanfare, no cheers, just the silent acknowledgement of tasks left undone. Kindling needs splitting garments require mending, and there's that oddly swollen pig to check on. If your voice still quivers from the remnants of illness, so be it. If you've shed a few pounds, perhaps one might say, your shoes will thank you. Surviving this ordeal does not signal the end of your trials. Illness lingers a specter in the shadows, in the gusts of wind, in the communal cup, or the forgotten cloth. Health is but a fleeting visitor in your world, not a constant companion. Yet you persist, for there is no alternative. Your coughs lessen. Each breath becomes a bit lighter, and the eerie visions that once haunted the corners of your room fade away. Color returns to your cheeks, accompanied by the weight of all that still demands your attention. In the medieval era, illness is free, but survival. That, my friend, comes at a cost you can't afford to count. You don't boast about making it through. You simply endure, knowing well that the next challenge is just around the bend. The next morning, you rise before the sun, your body aching from the previous day's labor. You slip into your patchwork tunic, a silent testament to your resilience, and trudge out to haul water once again. Here in this harsh world, survival itself is the only affirmation of your strength. And in a winter so fierce, this mere act of living feels like a minor miracle. Oh, how stark the reality of authority in medieval Europe. It was not a mere suggestion, but an ironclad fact of life, as inevitable as mud frostbite, or that peculiar neighbor who sent hints of pickled turnips. In the bone-chilling depths of winter, when hunger gnaws at your patience and tempers flare, obedience isn't just anticipated. It's ruthlessly imposed. You dare not question. You dare not grumble. Why would you? when the taste of public punishment and the sharpness of splinters await, from the manor lord to the village priest. Each figure of authority demands instant submission, armed with belts, staffs, or sacred texts to ensure compliance. Begin with the lord of the manor. He is the landowner, the ultimate arbiter of your existence. You don't even lease the land. You merely exist upon it like an unwelcome guest. You toil in his fields, pay your tithes, and bow as he passes, even if your back screams in protest. If he commands you to jump, you must inquire about the height, then leap, lest you miss the metaphorical nuance of his order. Refuse. How quaint. Watch how amusing that becomes when he seizes your harvest, or locks you in the stocks during a raging snowstorm. The stocks, mind you, are the least inviting of winter's accommodations. Your arms and neck are clamped between unforgiving wooden planks. As your fellow villagers parade by, perhaps chuckling at your misfortune, the cold bites into your skin. The humiliation stings. And if someone feels particularly merry, they might toss something your way. Turnips, if they're kind stones, if they're not. In this relentless cycle of obedience and survival, where does one find the strength to endure? Imagine for a moment the sheer audacity of standing up in protest against the injustices of your time. Ah, but such bravery might only earn you a fleeting moment of recognition, a second round in the relentless battle against oppression. Yet the lords with their iron grip were not your only adversaries. No, there was a more pervasive, a more chilling power that held sway over every soul in the village. The church. Oh, the church! Its reach was long, its eyes ever watchful. God's forgiveness might be boundless, but the local priest, he was a different story altogether. He watched, oh, how he watched. Missed a mass, worked on a holy day, coveted your neighbor's goat. Every misstep was noted not merely for spiritual reckoning, but as leverage, as a weapon of control. A misplaced word and suddenly accusations of blasphemy or witchcraft would rain down upon you like a storm you never saw coming. And let's not forget the tithes. The tithes, a tenth of everything you toiled for, taken without question or reprieve. Grain, eggs, chickens, even your dignity was not exempt from the church's insatiable appetite. Fall short, and instead of a gentle reminder, you'd find yourself publicly admonished, with the preacher's stern gaze and dire warnings of eternal damnation echoing in the village square. His power was not of the physical kind, but of memory, of knowing who skipped prayers, who dared to whisper during the holy silence, who questioned the necessity of eating boiled weeds for 6 weeks during Lent. And in the cold grip of winter, when tempers flared and coughs echoed through the village, a small transgression could easily place you in the line of fire. But what of the law? The law, if one could call it that, was often embodied by a farmer with a stick, masquerading as authority. Laws were not crafted for justice, but for control. Steal bread to feed your starving family. Lose a hand. Speak out of turn to a noble. Lose your tongue. Gossip too freely. Be fitted with a scold's bridle. An iron mask designed to silence your spirit. Even within the sanctity of your home, privacy was but an illusion. Your child's misbehavior, your spouse's sharp tongue. Every fault was magnified, every whisper amplified into a public spectacle. The village, under the watchful eyes of the church and the heavy hand of the law, was a stage where every act, every word was judged and often found wanting. In this unforgiving world, discipline is not merely a personal matter, it's a collective endeavor. The whipping post stands indifferent, unconcerned with whose whim led to the punishment, only that someone must bear the lash. Beware, for intelligence here breeds suspicion. Reading the domain of priests and curiosity, the mark of troublemakers are perilous pursuits. Ask too many questions and you might find yourself accused of sorcery, your fate sealed with a chilling plunge into water or a fiery embrace at the stake. For women, the constraints tighten further. You must navigate a life under the shadow of obedience, first to your father, then your husband, and finally your son. Speak in hushed tones, toil without cease, and never ever give anyone a reason to cast that damning whisper. Once the word witch floats in the air, your past deeds are rendered irrelevant. Healing with herbs, speaking out of turn, these are but kindling for the fire that awaits. And your neighbors. They are no mere observers. They are integral to this system of control. The one who greeted you with a smile at the market might turn you in for laboring on a sacred day. That cousin borrowing your firewood might casually mention your nocturnal mutterings, hinting at unholy affiliation. Surveillance here isn't electronic. It's human, deeply ingrained, and insatiably curious. This culture thrives on control where everyone watches everyone, and safety is a myth. The biting cold only sharpens this paranoia. Endless nights foster festering grudges. A minor grievance, a tool taken, a trade gone sour, a hen gone missing, can spiral into accusations, public shaming, and harsh punishments. There is no court of appeal, no higher authority to turn to. Your only hope for justice lies in the unpredictable mood of your Lord, or the priest's morning disposition. Even humor treads a dangerous path. A misplaced jest, a laugh too loud or too long, and suddenly your wit becomes evidence of subversion. Laughter in this world must be carefully rationed, lest it be misconstrued as rebellion. Winter's icy grip tightens, and with it life in the village grows harsher. The Lord's jest, once a mere chuckle at the priest's sermon or a laugh at someone in the stocks, now feels like a cold blade slicing through the silence. Suspicion shadows every other sound, every other gesture. Winter doesn't just chill the bones. It hardens hearts, sharpens tempers, and deepens the sting of punishment. A slap in summer might sting, but in winter, it's a cruel reminder of your frailty, the pain lingering like a frost-bitten memory. Imagine the scene: no balms or salves to soothe the bruised flesh, only the cold kiss of snow and the heavy weight of silence. Village meetings. None exist. Instead, there's a cascade of orders from above, met with a resigned obedience from below. Dare to question, to seek fairness, or to ponder why Father Thomas indulges in extra rations each Friday, and you risk inviting a punishment that could outlast your very existence here. In this unforgiving season, even the animals fare better if they prove their worth. A robust ox, a milk-giving goat, they all eat before the villagers. Your value. It's not in your voice, your thoughts, or your dreams, but in how much you can produce, how well you can obey. The village's silent creed whispers through the frost. Stay in your place, remain silent, be useful. Winter etches these words into the very fabric of our existence. Yet amidst this bleak landscape, people adapt. They learn the delicate dance of bowing without breaking, mastering the art of silence with a polite nod. Their yes might be spoken, but their eyes say, not today. Obedience becomes both a survival skill and a social masquerade. From a tender age, children are schooled not in grand aspirations, but in the subtle arts of survival. How to labor, how to speak to the Lord, how to evade the priest's sharp gaze, and how to sit motionless at Mass, suppressing laughter when old Margaret's snores echo through the sermon. Religion, meant to be a balm in this harsh world, often serves instead as a chain binding the spirit. You're not taught to soar with dreams. You're taught to shrink, to go unnoticed, to endure. Are reminded with the regularity of the sun's rise and fall that to obey is to be saved, that to question is to court damnation, that not only does God watch from above, but Father Thomas, with his overly keen eyes, watches from the pews, ensuring each bow is deep, each prayer fervent. As night descends, the village falls into a silence that is not serene but oppressive. The air is thick with the crackling of the fire, the mournful song of the wind, and the heavy footsteps of someone stumbling home from the tavern. Wrapped in wool and fear, you lie there, contemplating how obedience has once again granted you another day of life. Not joy, not liberty, but sheer existence. Tomorrow will dawn, and with it, the cycle of obedience will recommence. Not out of faith in the system, but because to survive, one must submit. Winter's toll is submission, a tax levied on all willingly or not. You do not challenge the cold, you do not challenge the commandments. You simply don your boots, lower your gaze, and press forward. In this medieval winter, to question authority is not an act of defiance. It is a death wish. Even your innermost thoughts must be curated, kept silent, hidden behind your eyes. In a society where obedience is the cornerstone, the mere act of thinking freely feels like a perilous indulgence. Thus you comply, you endure, and you bide your time until spring. For in the icy grip of winter, even the seeds of rebellion lie dormant. You have burdens enough without the added weight of heresy. So you lower your eyes, seal your lips, and continue like all the others. You are not alone out here, but this is not the comforting solitude one might seek. It's the chilling whisper of your own mind when something eerie howls outside and your door is not quite shut, leaving you to wonder, to fear what might be lurking just beyond. As winter's icy breath grows bolder, the world around you teeters on the edge of desperation. Wolves gaunt from starvation circle closer than ever. By December, their hunger gnaws at them like a relentless beast. And by January, they've become audacious in their pursuit of sustenance. Can you feel the chill of their eyes upon you, the weight of their gaze as they sniff out your warmth, your food, your very essence? Their noses twitch, lifted high towards the smoke curling from your chimney, the scent of meat and fear mingling in the frosty air. Imagine walking alone, perhaps, to gather firewood, or to empty the slop bucket, each step a dance with danger. The wolves are there, lurking at the forest's edge, their eyes glinting with predatory intent. They might not attack outright, but the stories... Oh, everyone has heard the stories of how they wait for the slightest misstep. A lantern extinguished a boot snagged in the snow, and then silence. The end comes swiftly or not at all, depending on the whims of fate. Yet it's not just the wolves that keep you on edge. Smaller, subtler dangers creep within your very walls. Rats, indifferent to the cold, have claimed your home as their own. They've burrowed into sacks of barley, made nests under straw beds, and nibbled on anything they can find, edible or not. The sounds at night, the gnawing, the skittering, serve as a constant reminder of their unwelcome presence. They devour grain soap, even the bindings of the town's only book. When food becomes scarce, these rodents test the limits of your survival instincts. Will you hunt them for dinner, or let them continue their reign of terror? Cats. Those regal creatures become invaluable. A good mouser in winter is almost worth more than a child, for they know their worth. They saunter through the cottage like tiny monarchs, demanding respect and warmth, in exchange for their service in thinning the vermin herd. But if they decide not to hunt, what then? The battle for survival continues, as relentless and unforgiving as the winter itself. Alas, a somber awakening greets you, the midnight feast of the rodents, having left a corner of something cherished, gnawed away. Yet it is not just the rats that stir unease. The dogs, those village strays, their ears tattered, their ribs stark against their patchy fur, roam in packs half wild from neglect. Abandoned when sustenance became scarce, they now prowl, sniffing at doors, chasing after the squawking hens, and occasionally trapping someone too slow or too weary to secure the gate. A mutual wariness exists between you and them. They bark at shadows, at specters, at nothing, but when hunger gnaws at their bellies, their barking turns to biting. In the wooded shadows, whispers speak of lynxes, phantoms of fur and claw, fleeting before you can truly believe in their existence. They mostly steer clear of human haunts, but their presence in the village would be no shock, just a stroke of misfortune. Then there are the bulls, large, menacing, and dim-witted. They don't hunt, they charge. In desperation, or when cornered, they become lethal. Stories circulate of men maimed by a boar's tusk, or worse, never returning from a hunt for a meal in the lean times. Sometimes they return with dinner. Other times, they are the dinner. And just when the outdoors seems daunting, remember the indoors offers little sanctuary. The cold not only ushers in rats, but also an array of critters. Spiders, beetles, centipedes, creatures that scuttle and crunch beneath your bare feet at dawn. You feign composure, sweeping them into the hearth to sizzle away. Then return to your soup, stirring, as if the morning's encounter was just a fleeting nightmare. In this harsh reality, your winter stores, dried meat, apples, cheese, salted fish, are not mere provisions, but treasures to be guarded. Not from greed, but from necessity. For in this relentless battle against nature's indifference, every morsel is a testament to survival, every bite a victory. In this harsh winter, the battle for survival is relentless, as you find yourself locked in a fierce competition with all living creatures around you. The mice, those persistent little scavengers, gnaw away at your stores, with unyielding determination. Mold, a stealthy adversary, spreads with an alarming speed, outpacing your frantic efforts to keep it at bay. And the family dog, if you're fortunate enough to have one, now gazes longingly at the larder door, as if it holds the key to his dreams. Families, in a desperate bid to protect their provisions, resort to hanging food from the rafters, only for it to be pilfered by creatures that defy gravity itself. You've discovered half-eaten sausages, bread marred with tiny bites, and to your horror, droppings in the flour bin. You clean them away, seal the lid, and try to convince yourself that it's still salvageable. For in this world, waste is a luxury you simply cannot indulge in.
Even the birds seem to change with the cold. Crows, those ominous watchers, follow you with their eyes from perches on rooftops and fence posts. Silent, they observe their presence, a chilling reminder of the unseen. You dismiss it as mere superstition until the sight of 3 of them perched ominously above your door makes you question, do they know something you do not? Winter not only sharpens the air, but the senses, too. Every sound reverberates with an eerie clarity. Footsteps in the snow echo like drums of war. When you hear the snap of branches, the low growl of an animal, or the rhythmic crunch of boots drawing near your heart, doesn't race, it freezes. Or sometimes, it's not an animal at all, but a person driven by hunger and desperation to the brink of madness. Bandits, ever vigilant, do not pause for the season. They grow colder, hungrier, and more reckless, ready to breach your door if they suspect you've food to spare. Thus you sleep with one eye open, a dull, rusted blade by your side, sharp enough perhaps to offer a sliver of hope. You pray fervently that you never need to wield it. Every noise now becomes a question, a potential threat. Is it merely the wind, or something more sinister lurking just beyond the walls? As the cold grips tighter, one begins to decipher the subtle language of winter. Oh, how the snow dances when something stirs within its embrace, and the silence that descends when unseen eyes are upon you. You attune your ears to the faintest whispers, your thoughts, weaving through the icy air with newfound caution. In these days, your provisions are not measured by their weight, but by the days they can sustain you. Your hands tucked securely under your arms are not seeking warmth, but guarding against the merciless bite of frostbite. Vigilance is your constant companion. Predators, after all, do not signal their arrival. They appear unbidden, as silent and deadly as winter itself. The Church may assure you of divine protection, but where is the divine presence when your chickens need guarding, when rats scurry in your cellar, or when mysterious tracks mar the snow just beyond your doorstep? You secure the locks with a resolute click, double knot the rope with firm resolve, and keep the fire smoldering, the knife always within reach. And when sleep finally claims you, it's a fragile truce, a delicate balance between rest and readiness. Winter isn't merely cold. It's a living, breathing entity, ravenous and ever watchful. Each morning you scan for signs of intrusion, not with idle curiosity, but with the urgency of survival. A solitary line of paw prints slicing through your garden is not just a mark of passage, but a chilling reminder of visitors in the night. Sometimes it's just a fox, perhaps scouting or merely passing through. Other times the intruder is far more sinister. You clear the snow, not just for safe passage, but to erase any evidence to make your home less of a beacon for whatever might be lurking just beyond the tree line. In this harsh season, some hang charms above their doors, bits of bone, carved wood, sprigs of dried herbs. They claim these ward off animals' spirits, or simply bad luck. But do they truly work? The source of these unnerving sounds remains a mystery, an enigma wrapped in the silence of the icy night, yet no soul dares to unravel it. Your dreams morph into peculiar realms, where teeth gnash, eyes glare, and heavy footsteps echo ominously. You jolt awake, your breath a ghostly cloud in the frigid air, ears straining for any sign of danger. Why must winter in this medieval era not only challenge your physical endurance, but also gnaw at your very sanity? It unravels the fabric of your being, fraying your nerves, your slumber, your sanctuary. Each night becomes a gauntlet, each distant howl a stark reminder in this harsh wilderness. You are not the predator, but prey, another shivering soul vying for survival against the relentless cold. Thus you persevere, eyes ever vigilant, doors sealed against the encroaching darkness. For in the medieval winter, the struggle to stay warm is merely one part of the ordeal. The greater challenge is ensuring you are not devoured before the thaw arrives. And should hunger drive the beasts to your door, they will come heedless of your prayers, your preparations, or your hiding places. You must be ready, for in such a world, even rebellion itself succumbs to the freeze. When provisions dwindle, when your toes lose all feeling, and your roof offers more sky than shelter, where else can you turn but to the divine? Here the medieval church stands a beacon, or perhaps another burden demanding its due. Religion in the Middle Ages was not merely a choice. It was the air you breathed. It permeated every moment, every space, every thought, particularly in winter, when the specter of death loomed larger than life and plagues made unwelcome appearances. You did not simply believe in God. Your entire existence was orchestrated around the notion that He observed, and not always with favor. The Church provided not just solace, but stringent rules. You went to Mass, even if the church itself was colder than the outside. You fasted when commanded, confessed to sins you were unsure you had committed. And in this chilling, unforgiving world, you clung to faith, not just for warmth, but for survival. Oh, the consequences were not merely spiritual. They seeped into the very fabric of our social existence. Whispers and murmurs spread like wildfire through the village, for nobody dared to be the harbinger of failed crops or the spreader of the dreaded fever. The church building, a supposed sanctuary, offered no respite from the world's harshness. With its stone walls that seemed to whisper ancient secrets, the cold, unforgiving dirt floors, and a draft that felt like an icy finger tracing your spine. It was a place of endurance rather than refuge. There you were, huddled next to your neighbors, your body trembling with the cold, yet striving to keep your shivers silent lest you be branded as weak. The priest, swathed in layers of robes that spoke of his spiritual authority, delivered his Latin sermon, a language foreign to your ears. Yet you nodded in feigned understanding, for it was not comprehension that was demanded, but obedience. Mass was relentless, a testament to the unyielding nature of faith. No weather was too fierce to halt its procession. If the river turned to ice,
you traversed it. If your child's cough echoed with the ferocity of a demonic possession, you bundled them up, bringing them into the cold embrace of the church. To miss Mass was not merely disapproved of, it was a mark against your name, noted by the priest, your peers, and the ever-watchful old woman whose unblinking eyes seemed to judge from the front pew. And let us not overlook the tithe. 10% of everything you owned or were supposed to own was demanded by the church. Not just the excess, but everything from the meager turnip broth to the last stringy oat. It didn't matter if your family subsisted on the barest of necessities, the Lord still required his share. Heaven, it seems, had its own set of bills to pay. During these harsh winters, religion transcended mere ritual. It became a drama of survival. People prayed for warmth, for sustenance, for health, for the strength to endure the relentless company of in-laws trapped by snow. Every conceivable problem had its saint, a sick cow, call upon Saint Eligius. Frozen fingers, Saint Polycarp. Lost your axe in the river, Saint Anthony. And for those teetering on the edge of sanity, trying to make it through January, there was Saint Dimner, the patron saint of those just barely holding it together. And then there were the relics, bones, teeth, splinters of wood, claimed to be from the true cross each, a tangible piece of faith, a beacon of hope in the darkest of times. In the heart of these sacred spaces, the handkerchiefs that once graced the presence of the divine were kept in reverence, encased in glass silver boxes, or even crafted from the remnants of melted spoons. People driven by faith and desperation would journey through biting winds and treacherous paths, their feet sinking into snow and slush, all for a fleeting touch, a kiss, a whispered prayer to these relics. Warriors 29, 30. Not because they grasped the intricacies of theology, but because their backs were against the wall. What if a miracle could occur? Imagine you could be restored to health. Your child might breathe easy again. Your livestock could be spared its affliction. And if the heavens remained silent, the fault might be yours. Did you not believe with enough fervor? Was there a sin, perhaps lurking in the shadows of your conscience, unconfessed and unforgiven? Confession. A ritual as cold as the winter itself would see, you kneeling, body numb from the cold, voice barely a whisper, confessing your trespasses to a priest who, with an air of knowing, listened without surprise. 1:30:03. He had heard it all before: the adulteries, the thefts, the envies, even that accidental bacon on a fast day. You'd pour out your heart, receive your penance, and exit, feeling a momentary lightness only for the weight of guilt to return unwelcome minutes later. Then came the fasts, Advent, Lent, Saint days. Times of no meat, no eggs, sometimes even no dairy, amidst the chill of winter, when meat was a distant memory and your last egg was but a frozen orb, you'd gather around a pot of whatever hadn't turned, calling it your holy sacrifice. 5. And who would dare to question this? The church was omnipresent, its influence woven into the very fabric of society. It owned the land, dictated the calendar, and collected its dues, promising that all the hardships of this life would be justified if only you adhered to its decrees. And if you didn't, the prospect of eternal fire loomed a stark, terrifying reminder of the stakes involved. Imagine the inferno that awaited if you faltered a metaphorical fire, a relentless blaze, an eternal shriek of flames. That was your fate if you slipped up. The weather itself preached its own sermon. A sudden storm was God's warning, a string of mild days, His mercy, and a frozen crop. Someone had sinned. Who unclear, but someone had surely brought this upon the village, turning it into a seething cauldron of moral tension. Neighbors scrutinized neighbors with hawk-like eyes. The widow who murmured too audibly during Mass, the man absent from Vespers, the child with too many curious questions. Any could be the culprit behind the goats freezing in the field. The boundary between spiritual and social retribution became as blurred as the frost on a window pane. Gossip spread like wildfire, or rather, like the creeping frost across a meadow. You'd catch the murmurs, "She doesn't kneel with the right reverence," or "I saw him working on the Sabbath." Before you knew it, you were either the focus of a prayer circle or the target of an accusation. Our sister 32 to 25. While you were out in the biting cold, striving to embody virtue, the priest enjoyed a slightly warmer existence. Not rich by the standards of nobility, yet distinctly more comfortable than the common folk. He savored real wine, had a private chamber, perhaps even a feather pillow. And he would remind you with a self-assured tone that your suffering was part of God's grand design, which was quite convenient for him, if not for you. Yet you listened. What else was there hope, even if dim as a candle's flicker was the church's most potent currency? In a reality where a simple cough could claim your child, where your neighbor might disappear under a caved-in roof heaven, promised a harsh yet enticing solace. If this existence was nothing but mud hunger and relentless cold, then surely the next life would be better. 30 to 21, golden streets, a warm glow, no frostbite, no rats. You clung to this vision not out of logic but out of necessity, because without it, life was merely enduring for the sake of enduring. In the depths of suffering, the unbearable weight of it all, the silence was deafening. No one dared to voice the agony that gnawed at their souls. Yet you would carve tiny crosses into the beams above your bed, whispering rosaries, in the velvet darkness, tying charms to your belts, each one a prayer to a saint, a guardian for safety, for sleep, for the promise of not succumbing before dawn. Every small act, every whispered word was a defiant stand against the abyss of despair. The cold was an unyielding foe, the hunger an ever-present specter. But perhaps, just perhaps, you could cling to God's favor long enough to witness the rebirth of spring. That meant holding on to faith even as your knees bled from constant kneeling, even when your prayers seemed to echo back unanswered, even when the flicker of doubt whispered that no one was truly listening. And when death came, as it often did, in the icy embrace of winter, the church was there guiding the departed to their final rest, or attempting to, for the earth itself was frozen solid. Graves were chiseled from the icy ground, or left shallow with promises of proper burial when the thaw came. The priest, his voice a solemn chant in Latin, would stand over the frost-covered shroud, the incense hanging in the frigid air like icy tears, as the living with red raw fingers and numb faces
laid their loved ones to rest. Sometimes the body couldn't be moved at all. A makeshift service would be held in a barn, or right there in the home, family members huddled close to the wrapped form, praying fervently that wolves would not come before they could mourn properly. Yet even in these dire moments, the church offered solace. Death was but a passage, a trial. The cold could not touch you in the warmth of heaven. The hunger would cease. The pain was fleeting if you believed, if you obeyed. So in those bleak moments, kneeling in a church where your breath fogged the hymnal confessing sins, to reclaim some semblance of control, praying to a saint whose name was barely a memory, you persevered. Faith in the medieval winter was not merely about salvation, it was about the very essence of survival. In those bleakest of times, as the chill winds shrieked their icy threats, it wasn't merely the warmth of the hearth or the sustenance of food that kept hearts beating. It was the flicker of a quiet, unyielding hope that somewhere someone was listening. For in a world governed by frost and famine, belief remained the one treasure that could not be seized. There exists a deceptive tale about winter that it retreats with the arrival of March. Verse 36. Oh, how we yearn for spring to sweep in with its timely grace, bringing with it the vibrant dance of blooming flowers, the jubilant return of the birds, and the sun's gentle caress upon the thawing earth. Yet, in the medieval tapestry of time, winter was not bound by the pages of a calendar. It arrived with a will of its own, lingered as it pleased, and sometimes it simply refused to depart. Unhappy trees. March could be as merciless as January, with snow still blanketing the ground, ice stubbornly clinging to the rooftops like an unwelcome guest, and the wind's relentless howling. The sun, low and pale, offered little comfort, its light too feeble to thaw the deep freeze. Mud replaced snow, but did life grow easier? No, the boots just grew heavier each step, a testament to endurance. Spring was but a whisper, a rumor on the lips of the weary. Hope, it was a perilous luxury. By the time the snow grudgingly melted, the scars of winter were already etched deep.
Unthreatened disease.
The earth might push forward, but the people, they were left behind. What winter couldn't freeze, it starved. What it couldn't starve, it shattered bones, tools, spirits. Families emerged thinner, if they emerged at all. You'd venture into town in April expecting signs of life, but instead you'd encounter doors still sealed, chimneys cold and silent, no smoke curling into the sky, no footprints in the mud, just a profound silence. 1 to 37:44. That silence, thick with the weight of absence, whispered tales of loss. Perhaps it was the old man whose cough echoed through the empty halls until it ceased, or the woman who sacrificed her own meager bread to feed her children until she herself had nothing left, or the child whose vitality dimmed in February, fading away like a shadow at dusk. Funeral. Then were not just ceremonies of mourning, but poignant reminders of winter's relentless grip, a somber acknowledgement of the lives it had claimed in its icy embrace. As winter's icy grip reluctantly loosened, the somber rituals of farewell were muted, if they occurred at all.
By the time late winter's chill began to thaw, the graveyard had swelled beyond anticipation. The ground, frozen like iron, resisted the spade's intrusion, forcing the community to lay their dead to rest in makeshift crypts within barns and caves, where the scent of decay would precede any visual confirmation. And even if you endured celebration was the last thing on your mind. There was no jubilant outburst at the first sight of a crocus. Instead, you gazed upon the earth as if it were a debtor, perhaps waiting for it to yield some semblance of sustenance, hope, or a sliver of reason. Spring wasn't the joyful rebirth of tales. It was more a laborious, muddied resurrection from the very grave you had narrowly escaped. You were alive indeed, but altered. A touch more subdued, noticeably leaner laughter was a rare commodity now. Trust was a luxury you could scarcely afford. You had witnessed hunger's cruelty, the theft by cold, and the transformation, desperation wrought upon souls. These things went unspoken, yet they were etched in every glance. Every flinch at a sudden sound, every guarded clutch at a morsel, every long gaze at the woodpile as if tallying wealth. You could discern who had watched life slip away, who had shouldered the burden of burial. And the hunger, relentless, did not retreat with winter's departure. Your larders were barren, your livestock gaunt. The fields, still barren, promised nothing immediate. It was a game of patience, boiling the same roots, baking the same unyielding bread, praying for rain instead of another cruel frost. Then there was the labor. Winter didn't merely starve. It shattered tools, decayed roofs, crumbled shelters. Spring demanded not just survival, but the mending of a broken world. Fences needed mending, roofs repairing, and the essence of life itself seemed to require reconstruction. In those relentless days you toiled with wheels and strained muscles, your body a testament to endurance. You patched, you planted, you chopped, you hauled. The tasks never ceased, only multiplied like whispers in the wind. With fingers still cracked from the relentless frost, you planted seeds, each one a tiny beacon of hope. You hoed the soil, your cough, echoing the last remnants of a January ailment, all while masking the gnawing hunger, the unyielding grief, the haunting dreams of being pursued through the snow by a specter wearing your brother's face. The records where they exist speak more through their silence than through any tally of numbers. Parish logs note who was laid to rest, but not the reasons why. Chroniclers mention the harsh seasons, the unusual deaths, yet they omit the stark reality. A village of 60 might dwindle to 40 by April. Children aged by life's harshness, women losing their unborn due to the biting cold alone. This medieval winter was not something you merely endured. It was a survival test in its purest, most unforgiving form. You emerged on the other side not unscathed or whole, but simply breathing. And even that was a rarity. The concept of trauma was unknown, yet its signs were unmistakable in every hollow gaze, every flinch at the wind, every midnight scream that pierced the silence. You were expected to press forward, to reconstruct, to express gratitude. But some could not move on. They ceased speaking, turned to drink, or sought solace in fervent prayers. Some simply faded into the background, their existence marked by a quiet persistence. They worked the fields in silence, ate without savoring, gazed past their kin, as if they were phantoms. The Church tried to provide meaning through divine trials, suggesting purification through suffering. Yet, when your infant did not stir, when your mother was laid to rest beside the thaw, even divine will began to wear thin. How far can one stretch faith before it frays? You persisted, your shoulders heavy with the weight of survival, because there was no alternative path laid before you. You tended to the chickens, repaired the creaking door, and whispered lessons to your surviving child on how to discern the freshness of flowers. Life, with its unyielding march, continued not because it had improved, but because no one dared to command it to halt. And then one crisp morning in late May, a whisper of life broke through the soil. It was merely a sprout, likely a weed, yet it commanded your attention, offering a fleeting moment where the world seemed as though it might soften once more. Spring, with its gentle touch, did not erase the scars of the past. It merely layered them beneath the new duties and the lighter shadows of the day. The losses lingered. The silence was a constant companion. Each name of those who did not survive remained etched in your memory. When the snow melted, revealing lost items, a solitary boot, a knife kissed by rust, a child's forgotten doll, you handled them with a tender reverence, your words swallowed by the quiet. In time, laughter would return tentative and soft around a newly kindled fire where a pot simmered with something slightly more palatable. It wouldn't endure, but it was something. A child might chase a chicken across the yard, or someone might coax a tune from a worn flute. The scent of wet earth and new grass would slowly replace the stench of decay and despair. Not joy, not yet, but movement. And that was the most one could hope for. You didn't seek happiness, only a reprieve from pain. You learned to sow seeds earlier, to preserve with greater care, to fortify against the coming cold. Yet, you knew with a certainty that chilled your bones that the next winter could be harsher. It was always just a question of when. Thus you carried your scars, your stories, and a cautious hope. The worst was rarely spoken of. Everyone carried their own silent tales. Everyone had their own. Oh, the tales! Those frozen fingers could tell, if only they could speak. As you passed the churchyard, your gaze lingered, not too long, for the sight of the earth, where kin lay buried, was too heavy to bear. You witnessed the new growth, a stark reminder of the old grief that still lingered in your heart. When someone inquired about your winter, your response was but a nod, a simple, "We made it," because that's all one could muster. Yet the truth was far more complex, woven with threads of cold hunger and the fear of not waking up on another frost-bitten morning. This truth it didn't shout from the rooftops. It whispered from the corners of your small drafty room, in the tightening of your cloak, even under the sun's weak rays, in the double counting of your meager rations, and in the vigilant ear tuned for the howl of wolves, even as spring began to thaw the land. Survival was not a victory parade, but a silent, grueling endurance. In the Middle Ages, this was enough. You wiped your hands, fed the fire, planted the next seed, and braced yourself for the cold's inevitable return. For in an era when nothing was guaranteed, not warmth, not food, not even the dawn-surviving winter, was the closest thing to a miracle that peasants knew. Most had no songs, no records, no legacies to pass on, just the quiet testament of another spring, the unspoken proof of their resilience. Survival didn't crown you a hero. It simply meant you stood when the snow finally retreated. And in the harsh medieval winter, that was the only victory that truly mattered. One more breath, one more season, endure. And so, dear viewers, we've journeyed together through the trials of winter, through the resilience of those who lived centuries before us. Your companionship on this journey means the world to me. If this tale has stirred your heart or sparked your thoughts, please leave a comment, like share this video, or better yet, subscribe to our channel. Let's keep the stories alive together. Thank you for watching, and remember, each day is a new chance to endure to thrive.